The story goes that in Kaoshan village, there was an old man named Zhou, famous for his love of snake meat and unmatched skill in catching snakes. Over time, the villagers began to follow his lead and eat snakes too. Last year, Zhou's son Dazhu married a beautiful woman named Chun Tao, and this year, she gave birth to a grandson for old Zhou. It should have been a joyful occasion, but ever since the baby was born, Chun Tao refused to hold him or change his diapers. Even when the baby cried until his voice was hoarse, she wouldn't spare him a glance. Old Zhou and his wife, seeing Chun Tao's neglect, took it upon themselves to care for their grandson. But within half a month, something strange happened. One day, old Zhou said he was going up the mountain to catch a snake to make soup for the baby. He grabbed his iron tongs and headed to the western slope. By nightfall, he hadn't returned. Dazhu and some villagers went searching and found old Zhou at the mouth of a cave. His mouth was stuffed with pebbles, his belly swollen like a woman 10 months pregnant. Before a doctor could arrive, he was gone, muttering "so delicious" with his last breath. The bizarre scene shook even the most seasoned villagers. They gathered at the foot of the mountain, whispering about how no one had ever seen a man die from swallowing stones. They feared something evil was at play. Old Zhou's family was heartbroken, with Chun Tao crying the loudest. After old Zhou was buried, his wife, Granny Zhou, went to the mountain god temple to burn incense. At the foot of the mountain, an old Taoist priest stopped her, his face grave. "Old lady, the trouble in your house isn't with gods, it's with people. Watch your daughter-in-law." Confused, Granny Zhou tried to ask more, but the priest vanished. She didn't tell her son about it. The next day, another tragedy struck. Wang, the hunter from the west end of the village, who had boasted about catching a 3-pound black snake the day before, was found dead on the mountain. Then Zhang the butcher and Li the doctor followed, each dying the same way as old Zhou, stuffed with stones, muttering "so delicious" before they passed. The village was in a panic. No one dared go up the mountain. That night, Granny Zhou noticed Chun Tao sneaking out. She followed quietly and saw Chun Tao drift lightly toward the western slope, stopping by the cave where old Zhou died. Chun Tao crouched down, picking up pebbles one by one, muttering, "Who's next?" Granny Zhou, hiding behind a tree, nearly cried out in fear. She crept back down the mountain, recalling the priest's words, and told Dazhu what she'd seen. Dazhu refused to believe it, thinking his mother was delusional from grief. But the next day, another villager died, belly full of stones, whispering "so delicious" before death. Granny Zhou, desperate and terrified that Chun Tao might harm her son and grandson, told the village chief. Though skeptical, the chief recalled an old tale: cold-blooded creatures fear the urine of young boys. Chun Tao's refusal to change the baby's diapers. Could it be to protect her supernatural powers? The chief gathered the village's strongest men, including Dazhu, to plan. Though reluctant, Dazhu agreed to test the theory, fearing for his son's safety if Chun Tao was indeed a monster. That night, Chun Tao went to the mountain as expected. Dazhu and the others followed. When she reached the cave, the chief splashed her with boy's urine they'd prepared. Chun Tao let out a piercing screech, and a green snake burst from her body. The villagers stumbled back in terror. The snake's blood-red eyes glared at them. "You butchers," it hissed. "Years ago, old Zhou led men to raid the snake cave, killing my kin and eating them. Now you pay the blood debt, and you're afraid." It fixed its gaze on Dazhu. "If you hadn't spared me as a child 10 years ago, I wouldn't have cultivated my powers for a decade to return for revenge." Dazhu remembered then. 10 years ago, he'd released a small green snake on the mountain. Old Zhou had dismissed it, saying it was too small to eat, so Dazhu let it go. The snake's eyes gleamed like blood. They deserved their deaths, thinking they were eating snake meat until the end. The chief, trembling, said, "But Li the doctor never ate snakes." The snake sneered. "He brewed snake gall wine and ground snake bone powder. You call him innocent? I trained for years for this day. Everyone who killed a snake must die." At that moment, the old Taoist appeared, wielding a peachwood sword. He struck the snake, which collapsed instantly. Sighing, he placed a yellow talisman on its head. The snake writhed in pain. "Why am I the sinner who must die? Don't they deserve to pay a price?" it cried. White smoke rose from its body, and it shrank to the size of a thumb before the priest sealed it in a gourd. After the snake was subdued, A torrential rain fell on Kaoshan village. A flash flood roared down the western slope, washing away every house. The villagers relocated, and Kaoshan village ceased to exist. But the priest's parting words lingered with those who left. All things have spirits. Greed brings calamity. The warning passed down through generations, and no one dared approach the western slope again.